to the podium. She is our department chair, and she's going to welcome us this evening, and then we'll get started with the reading. But I just want to say Linda is a great department chair, and it's not an easy job running the English department. We have a lot of programs, we have a lot of faculty, with strong personalities and opinions, myself included, and her patience has been great this year. So welcome, Linda Hall.
Hi all. I think my patience, based on my sandwich position in my family, taking care of my elderly grandmother and helping with my 4 grandchildren, the English department isn't that bad. It's not that bad. Thank you, Anna. I want to welcome all of you. Many of you I know from the dual degree lit classes you've taken, some on Zoom, some with masks. Now look at us. We're all here in the room. So I want to welcome you all. I want to congratulate those of you who are finishing and moving on to either grad school or wonderful jobs or just breathing for a while. And I look forward to hearing what you have to read to us tonight. I know that there are many of you here just in support of your peers, and I love that too. I think that's exactly what a good program does. So thank you to Anna and to Richard I see here. And is that it for our faculty tonight? Okay, we'll try to have better incentive. Wine and beer doesn't work? I don't know what does. Okay, welcome all of you, and let's enjoy ourselves. I'm going down the back way.
So the podium was supposed to be on the floor, so if you are a reader this evening, know that you can use the stairs with the railing, and if you're wearing heels, I highly recommend that because these stairs are a little tricky. So, I am Anna Leahy. I taught the MFA poetry class this semester, and this reading is all of those students, plus a couple of bonus poets who did their thesis in poetry and are going to share a few poems. In the spring class, we worked on chapbook projects. So the final portfolio, which is waiting for me to grade, I hope, is a short chapbook with a reflective essay, and the poems that you'll hear this evening are from those projects. Someone suggested that I read poems as well. So I will. This is the first poem in my chapbook, What Happened Was, and it's called What Happened Was, My Mother Was Pregnant with Me. What happened was, my mother was pregnant with me. She mapped the way through without stopping. What happened was, the dean thought she would stop. The dean wanted her to go away. He expected her to go away. The dean said she might fall down the stairs. The dean made his secretary call to tell my mother this. He would not tell her himself. She was not worth his time. She was expected to lose her way in this world. What happened was, my mother finished a semester late. She wore a graduation robe with 3 velvet stripes on each sleeve. She held my months-old self for a photo, proof that this could be done. She passed the bar exam the next year, a year late. What happened was, my mother told me that life wasn't fair. My mother wrote fairness into the law for me. What happened was, my mother told me that other children needed her as much as I did. My mother had her own white phone on the wall for their emergencies. What happened was, my mother knew she didn't have chances others did. My mother knew she had chances others didn't. What happened was, I grew up believing in fairness and chance. And then I'll read one poem from my more recent chapbook. which won a prize from Northwest Missouri State, and I'm going to go visit there on October 12th. All right, this is called Existential Crisis, and it's a prose poem, so a paragraph. Existential crisis. Wander around a bourbon, sip the town, sleep with a good book, read a woman young enough to reasonably bear your children. Ask a telling performance, answer in question. Name your future martini as you fall asleep during a beer. Order a child, chase it with a one-night stand, marry an apartment, hesitate when a smart woman asks you to move into her. Be divinely present as if tomorrow your life will change. Attend to each day and pray. Yesterday is a revision, tomorrow a rough draft. Find a penny of life, find meaning on the sidewalk. Let why break. Figure out your heart. And now I want to introduce Catherine Gallegos.
Hello, everyone. Tonight I'm going to be reading two poems from my chapbook. My poems center around the Greek myth of Persephone. She's tied a lot to Hades and his many tales, but I took a different approach to her story. So the first poem is called The Craving. I grew restless of my flower crown, of lilies and reeds, displeased by the many hues of lavender and blush. Life flourished all around me, encircled, enclosed in. I no longer regarded life with the same admiration. Who am I? Beginning to wither from the horrid pallid sweetness that hovered and fused into the air, I was surrounded by beauty in all shades, but I had never felt so dead. What am I? Encased in flowery fields, meant to remain the nameless goddess, until death sprouted beneath the ground. And then my second poem is entitled After. The fire quelled, soon ebbing to ash and smoke. What remained? Scorched, blistered, unrecognizable as once earth. But there she was among the dead, never more alive. Kore, kore, kore. This proverb lingers, taunts in persecution. She was never merely heir to spring and light. She had let the world restrain, define, collar, encompass her. Never again. And what remained? Persephone. Next will be Miles Enriquez Morales.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to read 3 poems. Let's see if I have enough time. I'm going to set a timer right now. Okay. This first poem is called The Real Issue. The real issue is that men are no longer real men. The golden age of masculinity has dimmed, led by an agenda of sensitivity, stargazing, and gender swapping. Seductive propaganda urges men to reject their base needs of eating bark, sleeping on thumbtacks, and taking shots of diesel fuel for recreation. No longer do men stand up straight, no homo erectus. Now they bend, diminished, pocket-sized. Men have grown soft like the underside of an uprooted tree. Men were once society's calcified coronary arteries, but have been reduced to egg cartons in their own homes. Men used to leap 20 vertical feet into the air to catch birds mid-flight before strutting with pride to their wives, kill held between bare teeth. Now, men are the awkward pauses in conversation when people consider what to say next. Men no longer want to spend their lives working along the wet, supple banks of the nearest river. They'd rather cavort with organic mulch and rhododendrons. The meaning of man has been reduced to a teacup. The man you love is secretly, fervently, a cardboard box. We used to be able to rely on masculinity for its creaky floorboards and panoramic views of snow-capped mountaintops. Our fathers and our fathers' fathers disassembled wristwatches and replica trains only to realize they lacked the necessary expertise to reassemble the trinkets. But they tried, and their efforts were in vain, for their sons and their sons' sons are mere forgeries of former generations. Men have been downcycled and left to exude methane in a landfill, seagulls screaming overhead, suspended in motion, wings spanning the space between men, crying out, "I am burned but not consumed." Thank you. Let's see if I can keep the momentum, okay. My second poem is called Held. So much new I can barely breathe, would think I'd be used to change. One thing, another, after each day, a trembling rabbit, ready to bolt, would love to feel a way out, twisting tracks, twisting trails of intestinal tracks. How can I feel my way out with one hand clasped tight in the other? Thank you. Okay. Whew. I have just enough time. Okay. My last poem is called Buried. I wrote you a poem, but slipped the sheet between my teeth and swallowed before you could read. It was supposed to be about us, but every time I tried to write something sweet, I ended up writing about snakes and spleens and the space between us, which can never be crossed, even if I stitched my skin into yours. I wrote a poem about my feelings, which is to say, I dipped my fingers inside a bowl of water and pressed damp fingers along each crease of the papers scattered across my desk, folding the words over themselves, seeing how many delineations these hands could make. I wrote a poem for you, but instead of sending it in for publishing, I buried it in fecund grass, sod and all, and prayed it would sprout into something that could keep us alive. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I would like to introduce our next poet, Sarah Johnson.
Hi. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone who's in Dr. Leahy's class for helping me read these poems and workshop them. Dr. Leahy as well. Without you guys, these poems would not be what they are, so I thank you for that. Also, for those of you who are curious, or just to offer some context for the poems, today I'm 10 months and 4 days sober, so yippee! Okay. The first poem is called Thirst. I don't care about liquor unless it passes my lips. One sip, the heat laces around each rib, and I'm already sunk. Down where water is ink, where time drips. Floating the depths with sea devils, I'll be a submersible's glittering muse one day when my slowing heart stops. Okay, this one is called Coloring Book. My kindergarten teacher was an angry hippie who couldn't understand me. My language was dilly-dallies and broken poems. Math made me cry, and I didn't know how to tie my shoelaces. I never abandoned that girl. Putting stamps of LSD on my tongue turned my palms into pearly lotuses. What should we do with our hands? Try art, I said. It was the best poem I ever wrote. This one's called Trip. The slanting light falls in buckets until periwinkle dusts down the soil. Cows lay their worries in the barn, and sunflowers breathe out, glad to know the day. Wind winnows through dusk, making the song that always is. The road ahead is cold and fair. Okay. This is Gemini. When she came back from rehab, she smoked Newports and wore platform flip-flops. Hope carved a home in her dizzy blue eyes. When they lowered her casket down, I felt relief. No more cryptic hospital trips or feral cats living in supply closets. She left newcomer chips and her love. I found the twin stirring in my body's basement on a rum afternoon in May. Okay. This is the last one. It's called New Eyes. Green hills are mercy. They were bleached salty gray and worn as cracked leather when I first came here. Jade and tangerine reigned for months, until the coyote scat smelled like lavender, and even the rattlesnakes were wreathed in blossoms. I feel something higher when I look at them now. The hills carry on and on ad infinitum. Thank you. The next person up is a close friend of mine and a lovely, lovely poet. Please welcome Noor Abu Al-Raik.
So I worked on a poetry collection that explored the years, and so every title has a year in mind, and I'm working backwards. I also have 5 poems, and I hate to say this, but is it okay if we don't clap until I finish all of them, just so we can breeze through? Thank you. 2019. Curiosity consumes me. I learn about people through loosened tongues on the wooden floorboards of homes I don't remember, surrounded by empty bottles. Friends talk of their history, ancestry, childhood with a burning passion. They speak of trauma, anger, pain, internalized and lingering. They say things we don't speak of at 12 p.m. over eggs and bacon. 2016 Immigrant. This year is marked by long flights, introductions, mixed emotions, unending tears, learning when to pronounce T, perfecting the invisible vowels in the Californian pronunciation. In-N-Out burgers, frosted sugar cookies, my first ever vanilla Twinkie, the small uniform houses like paper towns lining city limits, learning when to conceal, learning about honesty, a core value in American society, and the exceptions around the core. 1991 growing refugee. At 2, her head was bigger than her body. The doctors said babies sucked out of the cervix have big heads. The doctors said she is going to grow into her head. At 5, the disproportion mimicked a cake pop on a stick. Strangers adored her cartoon-like disproportion, complimented the width of her smile. Her glee is evident in her citizenship photo, almost as if she knew what it meant to stop being a refugee. 1989 birth. She was born in August, a refugee to refugees. Her birth a blur in a teaching hospital. The students decided on an epidural, a bit too late for one to be injected into your spine, and watched you fade away. When you were gone, the delivery doctor arrived. They delivered her as you faded between consciousness. You never heard her screams when they slapped her back, never got the opportunity to hold her covered in fluids or sever the umbilical cord connecting her to you. And finally, my last one, 1981 photo book. I lingered on the photo book, called you in the middle of the night in complete fixation. They thought you were Iranian. A dreadful time to be an Iranian in the United States. This was before Carter, before they let the hostages go, when being an Iranian was criminal. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the next poet, Lachey Dowell.
Hello. So my poetry book is just about like my feelings about random things and my fears. So I only have 2 poems, and the first one is Missing Minutes. Missing minutes. I have this weird thing with time. Somehow I always either have too much or too little, and even when I try to change the reality of things, time slips through my fingers like water, or is it sand? I can't quite grasp the feeling of time passing by me. I just know it leaves my heart heavy. I think of time a lot these days. Wonder how much I have left, with my parents, with my siblings, with myself. I wonder if time will only ever slip away from me, or can it be held? Yet I know time held is just a memory. Time only moves forward, never back, never still, which keeps me here shivering in fear. And then my second poem is My Dirty Little Secret. There's a public pool of germs swimming around my hands. I feel them every time I pick up my phone or open a door, and the sweatiness just makes it worse. So I wash and scrub and try to keep the disgust from creeping up my throat. Some think it's a joke, the way I gag when a snotty-nosed kid brushes past me. I don't mean to choke when I see mold or acne. It's just this disease has got a hold of me, and I can't break free from this insanity. Whether or not something is clean gnaws at me constantly. I try not to look too hard at anything, but dirt and grime always catch my eye, and once again my sickness has gotten me. Inevitably, I must succumb to this filthy reality. And our next poet is Anthony Elgray.
Alrighty, hi. So my chapbook collection stands as a meditation of grief, loss, and memory, as well as being an appreciation, but also a love letter for my grandmother. This is how I try to meet you. I look at these hands and see vestiges of my grandmother in them. While the skin on them is not the same as what she used to hold, they remember how her cracked skin lined up with their own softness. I look at these hands and am reminded of my great-grandfather. He was a Nice veteran. After he was a gardener, I try to carry the same life he used to give to his gardens. When I can't, I think the life must be in the voice. So I find myself talking to the trees. Well, like lately, we've been breathing together. I imagine that must be what he did. I never met him. I find a certain solace in the faint silence of the rustle. He must be the reason. The trees are a vestige of the past as much as I am a vestige of my grandmother. I look back down at these hands and remember when my grandmother showed me how relieving the earth was when we dug and dug to plant lavender, strawberry blossoms, and forget-me-nots. Well, today, I am just left with all the memories, all the forget-me-nots, and just my hands. Thank you. Oh, great, this is Thaw, Freeze, Thaw. Walking on a wet gravel road is a piercing feeling, one that gets worse as the rocks accumulate with each step. But there was something exciting about running inside and feeling your feet thaw, something that felt like an accomplishment. My grandmother had rough feet. She walked around everywhere she could barefoot or in her red clogs. Her feet had a ribbon of callus running on the side, and there was no surface she wouldn't use to make it rougher. I remember her walking on our wet Washington driveway that had pebbles strewn across it like it was the living room carpet. I would secretly follow in her footsteps, just looking for patches of moss to rest both of my feet without her noticing. When she died, I would stand outside and wait for the cold Washington wind to numb my ankles, to make it feel like I was standing on nothing, like the more I didn't feel them, the less real they were. If a body isn't real, it was easier to believe nothing is. Once I'd had enough, I would sprint onto the living room carpet, searching for comfort. Thank you. Great, and this is the very last poem. This is also the titled poem of the entire collection. This is Grandmame Gohan. You are 7 years old. Peering into the kitchen, pyramids of rice stand on the counter, topped and coated with peas and sprinkled with salt. It is Mame Gohan, your grandmother, then your mother tells you. The words were always pronounced like English, like you unknowingly learned the Romaji first. Your grandmother would drop Japanese words like breadcrumbs. Your ears would ring with them for hours, just until you forgot what they meant. Thank you. Well, on that note, I would like to welcome up to the stage Constance von Eagle de Mello.
Thank you, Anthony. That's probably the best try at the pronunciation I've heard since moving here, so I appreciate that. I'm going to try to get through 4 poems tonight for a little bit of context. They're about some of the frustrations I've had with the world lately. My first poem is titled White Girl Tourist. Pura vida on bracelets, beer on the beach, making out on a Costa Rican trail, the boy from the hostel who's tan and has unruly hair. Summer love. Talking about the volcano, but the volcano is a metaphor for you in your Instagram caption. How come there's no tropical fruit in the apple emojis? Uluwatu is home, a surfboard against dark blue water, your life on the back of the Vespa you buy. Everything is so cheap on your American dollar. The locals exoticize you too, you argue in your mind. They want to touch your blonde hair. You've unlocked spirituality in your daily 3-minute meditation. Brazilian suntans, white marks from where the bikini line went, booty out for the summer. Beautiful people selling corn on the cob at the beach, 20-minute Uber rides for $3. Rio de Janeiro, Carnival, Christ the Redeemer. Redemption always comes for the white girl tourist, an explorer of the world, a lover of foreign beaches. Carefully crafted Instagram aesthetic, day in the life visiting the favela, taste testing Mexican candy, diving with the stingrays in Cabo, Airbnb recommendations less than you would pay for a night in LA, local secrets in Hawaii, hidden gems of Panama. The world is the only food you allow yourself to devour. Return home, talk about still finding sand in the corners of your phone case. Put another pin on the world map on your wall. Curl up in the corner of your parents' house, sit by the fire for Christmas. New iPhone 14 for the 4K pictures with the mandala hanging in the background. Where to next? People will ask. But you're a nomad. You go where your Instagram page decides. # sustainable travel. Thank you. Next up is draft. The 19-year-old soldier is drawing borders on the other side of the world. He went to Costco to take his passport picture. The officer sitting opposite to him explains the rules aloud, trying to drown out the noise of the sand against the contours of the barrack. It's a valid sacrifice, he says. The 19-year-old thinks of friends at college, witnessing the frat rush, a different kind of sacrifice. I don't know anything about being a man. I call Top Gun military propaganda from the comfort of my theater seat. The 19-year-old loses his leg, kills a child. Collapsing into the stretcher, he comes home, drives the opposite direction from Disneyland, shaking like the birds. At least college will be free. At least manhood has been proven. In the dark, between the shivers, he remembers the girl he kissed at the prom. At home, the basement still smells like his basement. His mom still smells like his mom. On the other side of the world, a boy straps on his boots, puts on his helmet, ready for prayer, looks the other way, then shoots. Thank you. Overheard at the Oceanside Barnes & Noble. Yesterday I was at Barnes & Noble looking at the banned books table. Next to me, a couple asked one another what that even meant. Brushing their hands over the books as their bluest eyes were watching God as they killed mockingbirds in 1984. I waited with bated breath for a deep thought, a deep consideration. I read that book in high school, the boy with the backwards cap said, his voice deep-fried as if talking through a burp, chest nearly bursting through his t-shirt, pointing at Fahrenheit 451. It sucked ass. Disappointed, I rolled my eyes, moved over to the fiction section. But then again, at least he got to read it. At least he got to determine for himself that it sucked ass. And finally, this is the title poem of my collection, Wonder Bread. I had the luxury of growing up with a mother who bakes cakes, breads, challah, madeleines, smells filling the house with homeliness, crusts thick enough to cut through the roof of your mouth. It has filled me with arrogance, this luxury. It has spoiled me into believing there is one correct kind of bread, like an anorexic French woman whose breakfast is the tip of a baguette with butter and a cigarette. The shelves at the grocery store are lined with colorful packaging, bread that won't expire until after the spring. I hold my fresh ciabatta, feeling defensive, knowing I never had to rely on any wonders to be fed. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Louis Labatt.
What's up? I don't really do preamble, so I'm just going to read 3 poems. Just get straight into it. This first poem's called Gallows. Our bodies, like miracles hung through coats and fishing wire immovable, wind floating by nodding in 2, we knew to meet by 4, in front of a scene of melted stargazing, grading our lives wrought like trauma, unfurled skin from gunshot wounds, erupted balloons, so filed out, ribbons and confetti, our exposed tissue issued a celebration as we held hands, arms and legs and seizures, propping up our rated bodies, corpses of our miracles out like white calla lilies, we came place upon our parents' doorsteps in boxes and urns. This next one's called Missing. Missing, under grimaces, under time, under strobe lights and purposeless miracles, the crinkles of your smile made limp necks broken over ankles and thin wrists, a kiss you refuse every anger, eventually becoming little petals laying upon your cheek, my palm faded into you, I hope, my fingers get peace amongst shallow moonlight. And this last one is called Crushed. Crushed behind a meniscus, behind the bent of a needle-pricked elbow, kneecaps flowed out of voluptuous fingertips, flowed from shins through exhausted bones, shown as an attempt to lay under fruit-filled trees, lime green simplified walls becoming the foundation of our found fortitude. The furniture we built, from my limbs, my lips, my body, always your resting place. Next up, Diego Garcia.
Thank you, Louis. And thank you all for being here. It means a lot to get everyone outside of class and get in this lovely, lovely space. I'm going to be reading 3 poems from my collection called North Ends, and a little bit about this. It's mostly basically just coming down to how my mind rambles and a lot of introspective thoughts that are attached to how I see myself in this world. This first poem is kind of, it's numbered, and the numbers are the seconds, or you can imagine them as the seconds that have been counting in my head, and you'll see. Okay. Fractals. I count, expecting an answer at the end, sooner or later, forgetting why I'm counting. 19. Why do I make things worse for balance? To get others to see my point of view, 1, which I see as right, 2, because I'm interested in things, 3, and I like connecting, and 4, people say I have a unique mind. As 17 becomes focused on putting myself into it, to try and understand things at 8,938,287 within my own point of view, so I could say, I know, my peripherals become clear. 5. If I follow what that famous blogger once said, that 1, why do we call ourselves lawyers, politicians, dentists, instead of saying we practice law, politics, dentistry? 2, shouldn't I then say that I'm not a hurtful person, that I'm just practicing being hurtful? 5.5, those girls. 1, my mother and father. 2, my brother. 3, that random pizza delivery girl in that elevator. 4, my aunt. 5, anyone caught on the short end of my stick. 6, might they then see my behavior as a state of possible change? -5 is the fact that there is no logical starting point to my misery, making me more of a devastation. 36, why is knowing such a problem today? Nothing changes for me. I live in 2007 and 2019 in 2023, and I haven't cried in years. 2.5, why do I see people and places today as a way to fix the past? 8,938,286. What does my memory do to me that I can't control? 17. Why do I feel like I'll be a student in every situation? 18. I want to be done here, so I'm done here. 1. Why can't I find comfort in chaos? Thank you. This next poem is about, I guess, relationships. Time to go. What I really wanted of them was to wait and not to come to the rescue, so I could see how I responded to my body fighting me at perceived moments of most danger, going past logical points of tolerance, nearly eclipsed by residues, shadow, in the place at the center of my chest, filling up again with fresh smoke and liquor, the place I am afraid to go, and which she helped me forget momentarily. But now I feel I must return to get what I want, what I need, philosophically, so that I might breathe again and not resent them for being helpful when I wouldn't help myself, when I couldn't muster the courage to see no other way out besides falling into anger somewhere underneath my chest, covering me, part empty, with something akin to despair. When I would talk to her and feel completely frustrated that a person who loves me can also be dragging me by my hope. Thank you. And this last poem is the epitome of rambling in my head. So if it goes a little off the rails, just, I don't know. But it's called Interior Designing. My flame dies after it's lit pretty regularly. I'm not consistent, she tells me. I don't want to talk about her. I'm angry at me at her, at things I can't blame, but do somehow. I find ways. I eat too much and find ways. I get sick and see myself better. I feel more myself when I'm sick, when there's a visible reason for my behavior. I listen to my body, and it's impatient. It wants to go back, to throw punches, to give hugs, to throw itself into the dance pits. Now, it's crunchy. It's more homunculus-like than it's ever been. My philosophy is communication. She'd get upset or I'd laugh. She'd see disconnection or I'd see progress. Nobody's been close to me in years, since 2015, when I was simply complex. Now I'm complexly complex, I think. I'm at the whim of my mood, which is at the whim of her, who is at the whim of my mood. It can be fun sometimes, but most of the time I feel lack, simple lack, in space. And in that space, imaginations come in. Call them results, call them tendencies. They are calling for attention from I know not whom, someone else. Nobody can, myself. I see failure, I see not myself, and don't want to talk to me. I just want to sleep and eat and go to Asia, play soccer, have fun. I don't want to be wrong unless in a simple way that has a simple solution without religion. I'm too lazy and afraid if not, I'm a soft little blob with hard-ass fists. I don't want to break stuff, but I do as well. I want to insert myself somehow, in a good way. But I feel entitled, maybe, to pull things down where I tell myself I live, where I relate, where I have fantasies and solace and solitude and space to fill, space to inhabit, make mine. I'm an interior designer. I've iterated my room dozens of times. Ask, what version do you get? What day is it? What year? Who is dead? Who is alive? Why do I matter? Why do I try? I stopped because I'm leaving. I'm going. I can't stay, I know. But for now, I stay. I have nowhere else to go. Thank you. And up next, we have Hene Kweku Tre.
Okay. Hi. I think it's hard when everybody does so well. And then you're like, okay, is this the day I disgrace myself? Okay. My collection is titled In the Interim, which I think, in my mind, it's where I see myself right now. A place of like being in limbo. And so some of the poems are like that. They are about that. So they move between time zones and countries and homes. And I wanted the collection to end with a poem about my mother. But the poem is also about so many other things, but most importantly, it's about my mother and the things that sometimes we share. So I'm going to read the poem before I move on to the rest. Devotion. You walk into the tent like a cloud disappears when the Sunday sun pulls over Gunasia, and leave your hand. I fold it into a prayer, Mother. I fold everything. A requiem of sustenance. A blanket for the mornings I cannot rise from this borrowed bed. I have tried to explain my fractures and the paralysis to each attentive ear and God. And though I do not want to fault him, he too may have misunderstood me. I ask for things that are difficult for even a God. The voice in my knees and ankles speak louder each day. Darkness is an opportunity to be dead, I tell my friend. A lover someday will wake to my breathless body and will have to decide who hears this news first. The night I prayed for the night to be stored, I forgot my lights on. God is slick. You should know that. In Cape Coast, there is a room as empty as a president's mouth, save the suitcase zipped to the throat of a dead goat's belly. In it I have left your warmth. Here is my theory, untested, so really not a theory, a hypothesis at best. Through DNA mutation, the pups of an enslaver's dogs inherited the taste of black bodies. They lust after blood and flesh. Everywhere I pass, a dog barks from a cage behind a wall 3 feet above me. This Gunusia skin, watering its mouth, revealing its teeth, white and wanting to be bloodied. Twice, black dogs, unleashed, have changed my direction. A revelation of my devotion to be alive or fear of canines tearing my flesh, their owners absent or smiling to the tune of their growling. I am no fool. I know everything that wants me dead bears its teeth first. Thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is called This Cove Triplex. This cove is a place in Ghana, and there is a fort in this cove. And this is really about my visit to the fort. It is also a play with Jericho Brown's duplex form, but in this form, I am writing a sequence of duplex. So all the 3 poems are linked. The first one is The Evangelist. What makes a well is the water it holds, not the walls. But without the walls, the water is just water, not a well. What else have walls held behind in making a well? His snore from an upper room oscillates the waters. From an upper room of the fort, he oscillates the waters. He had argued in the Sun's court that the fort hosts no ghost. Often, the Sun's court has no ghost. He believes, however, like some of us, in Jesus and his Holy Ghost. Have we abandoned our ancestors for Jesus and his Holy Ghost? Did they come by sea, or were they always here? Let the navel-gazing start from here. It is this belief that makes the morning heart cold. Shirtless on the fort stairs, aroused by the disbelief of the cold. What makes a well is the water it holds, not the walls. The girl. Without the dead, cemeteries are merely cavities collecting rain for the earth. From our dead comes all the wisdom of the earth. This hill, Golgotha, still holds ancestral bones of all kinds of people, all decayed and even animal bones. It is true, a living girl's blood holds the walls together. Without her, the fort with its people, all together will crumble to earth. Golden ornaments matching his skin. Ornaments should infallibly eulogize the skin. It is this Ghanaian skin that all yellow things sing to. It is the woman planted to grow a fort that I sing to, with Konimo's guitar playing K. Frimpong's riffs. Asasia and your daughters, I play you these riffs. And the donor says, let the rain fill greedy men out of your cavities. And the next one is Brandon. To claim ownership of bodies, they bend human flesh. The branding iron and the stove, remnants of evil, are still there. I have climbed the hill, seen it. I have been there. To survive this world, did I not have to grow eyes at my occiput? I could use a metaphor, but no, I choose you, occiput. Such an unloved word. Tell me that these dogs will not eat me if I fall, and people will not merely be offended that I chose me in desperation to be alive and kick the dog in the mouth. In every fight, I have protected my eyes and my mouth. All of my face, really. I want that knowing of looking good as much as I want the feeling. Unlike the good white man whose home once was the slave's quarters, what fool trusts the man? What fool trusts what men do with their quarters in wait for a call? Take these bodies and mark their flesh. When I started this project, I wanted to write love poems, and I failed miserably. But I think one of them probably worked. I don't know. So I'm reading that, and that's the last poem I'm going to read. Light. Chief priest of knowing things, I too have loved. walked the night under warm lights, jumped potholes with the tact of a cat's paws, whilst holding hands with a lover. Sneaked into the dreams of early risers with laughter, kissed in hallways, fingers breathing under elastic bands, lips bloody with pleasure, yet do it again. The world has not been sane since Zacchaeus, but briefly it is for they that wake, holding their lovers' waist beads as if the night was a stage, and they played in Troa. For an unworried audience, knees bending for where lips should touch. Thank you. The next poet, I am very, very honored to invite her to the stage. In this class, she was one, her work was one that I really admired throughout the class. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Emily Velasquez.
Today I will be reading 3 poems for you. My first poem is titled Whistle Caw. When their breath rambles, it's the way they exchange complaints about the weather roof's sorrow into an oxygen of smoke from a burning stove inside a room where a choir used to whisper if enough of them gathered to hear the lone whistle caw. Call out each string from a window where tilted lighted lamps steam over half-prayed tongues. My next poem is titled Watching TV with the Volume Off. When you squinted, you were creasing the light, pretending to reverse the last time you held your mother's home in your mouth, a hole from your mouth, the last time your face paused, it swung your tears so they'd cross. They crossed just over the light post, just over it. Last poem is titled Glass Doesn't Always Clink. When your grandmother's memory unbundles at a bus stop as she reaches for el cambio, or when you call her and she calls you by your other sibling's name, you don't argue or correct her. After she tells the same story over, you write it down to remember how her sounds left her mouth, how she tasted her sounds when she swallowed and smoked from her 4th cigarette that was dying on the cracked cemented driveway. Thank you. Up next, we have Nina Handriva Weller. Thank you.
So you don't have to clap, thank you very much at all, because, you know, at the end if you want to, but I'm going to read 5 from my little chapbook done for Professor Lee, which is actually about memories, because I'm that old that I can only think about that. So the first one is Cherry Blossoms. My friend knows I'm homesick. She sends me pictures from her walks. Today, one came from Tokyo. Blossoms falling through the air above a playground, pink against the sky, pale and light. She calls her picture Cherry Blossoms in Flight. Angels. Oh, no, don't worry. Thank you very much. Sorry. At the end, if you want to, it's all right, yes. Angels. I have seen glowing angels, their wings beating fire through air, sparks like burning snowflakes falling from their feathers as they rise to unimaginable heights and keep moving, ever upward, their light fading into infinity, their thin voices calling back to me. Mother, my mother. When my mother was dying on the bed beside the window overlooking the rooftop of the building next door, I lay beside her and tucked my body next to hers. Together we watched the wind tug at the smoke rising from the shaft on the rooftop of the building next door. Forms were transformed, smoke became wind, something seemed to become nothing. In the silence, my mother slept. I moved my body closer to hers, and my mother awoke. She spoke, and together we watched the wind shred the smoke rising from the shaft on the rooftop of the building next door. Then the darkening sky became night, and there was nothing left to see. Shibuya Station at night, which has had lots of input from lots of people, so thank you very much. As I hurried to catch my train, I passed an old woman wearing an old raincoat, pushing an overflowing shopping basket up the slope away from the platform I was walking towards. I was tired, I kept going, but then I stopped and turned back. In passing, I had seen her feet. They were naked. She had no shoes. It was winter and very cold. Overcoming my shyness, I approached her, holding some money in my hand. She didn't see me at first, and she didn't hear me until I was beside her. Then she looked at me as I asked in my simple Japanese if she would take a little money for a cup of coffee. I have tried many ways of offering money, drink, or food. In Tokyo's unbearable summer heat, I don't speak when I hold out bottled water to homeless men whose fingers find nothing in the coin slot of the vending machine. I nod, they nod, and we continue walking. But that cold night I spoke, and we stood face to face as she replied in perfectly accented British English, "No, thank you, I don't drink coffee." And my last one, you'll be glad to know. The pool painting. Sometimes I think of David Hockney paintings when I swim alone in the pool and watch as light catches in the ripples on the surface, then falls through the water and sinks into the shadows at the bottom. I think of the one with his lover standing in a red jacket, leaning over the edge, watching a solitary figure in white trunks swim beneath the pale blue water with the green hills in the background turning pale blue too. Thank you very much. The incomparable, the amazing Vesper North will now. Thank you.
I'm happy Nina went before me because she adjusted the microphone. This first one is a little bittersweet because it was the first poem I wrote at Chapman, and I've since edited it, and now it is the last poem I've written at Chapman. Indigo, 1965. The static scratches my eardrums as the vinyl spins with nothing left to say. The record ceased playing hours ago, yet I still hear our song. Daddy watches the first television war from the den in the dark. It wasn't like this before, he says, remembering the glorious fanfare that played as nurses waved to the cameras, and the GIs smiled from the railings of the Titanic white ships headed for Europe. That was 1945. In our year of 65, white flashes spark across the screen as sons of Aquarius dash, bent at the waist, avoiding sniper fire, desperate to disappear in the tall grass of the paddies. Are you one of them? My tears have left dry, shriveled patches in the notepaper on my lap. I waited for the words to come. I have none. I gave them all to you before you left, spit them at you like bullets under an indigo sky. I cried until my lips turned blue, but you didn't see them because I ran to the ocean so I wouldn't have to watch you leave. The ink of an old pen seeps into the snowy shag, staining the memories held within its fibers of laughter over spilt wine and lost pomegranate seeds nestled in the roots, a flecked nail polish broken from clawing against the grain. The midnight pigment spreads, soiling my yesterdays until they all become indigo. Thank you. These last two, I've started a series called LA Stories. I'm from LA and not the good parts. So these are kind of based on people that I've seen and experienced. The first one is Erebus. My arms form wings, swinging through the arid air. I move, tickled by the fringe dangling from my vest against my bare legs, skin patched with dirt and slick with perspiration. They carry me to the beat of a generational anthem, heavy with bass and a guitar that creates the waves for the voice of a raspy siren to ride. The sky burns with orange, blossoming into purple as the night sky awakens, revealing a civilization of untouched stars. I spiral underneath, unable to cease dancing. The blur of glow sticks paint the archaic desert. Young strangers converge, clustering closer together, yearning for reciprocation. We meet, and time slows. My body pumping spiked blood through already addled veins, and we flow. Together in rhythm, our feet stamping the parched ground, covering its cracks whilst embers crackle, sending sparks on a suicide errand to reach those stars. They'll never be like them. Your tea hangs suspended, revealing the edged range of hip bones hidden underneath. Your golden strands slip from a stretched out hair tie. Let's pretend to be each other's dreams, just for tonight, until the sun comes to bathe us in blues, returning me to the dark. Thank you. This last one is Leviathan, and if you go on Anacapa Review starting June 1st, you'll be able to read it there. Just found out yesterday. It also, this month, Lynn Thompson, who is a co-editor, still an editor for Tab Journal, yes? Last year was an editor. Her work is on there currently, so I recommend you check out this new journal. Leviathan. My body hangs suspended under a skyscape of smog-masked stars, divided by the water of your infinity pool. I float, blind to the edge, never knowing how close I am to falling over. Alexa plays that indie artist you discovered on Bandcamp while high on Blueberry Morning. You'd rather listen to him than me. He makes you cultured. Interesting. The midnight breeze forces your scent into me, flooding my airways with sun-soaked citrus of a California boy. With your tangled bun and 9 o'clock shadow, you wear shades at night because they're prescription, and everyone loves it. Your attention is the currency you use to run your freckled nose among bare stomachs until it's buried between thighs. We crave to become the reflection in your eyes, to be the version of ourselves that others see through you. The sound of water running over the edge, spilling into the canyon, grows louder as you watch me from your IKEA lounge chair, hunched over ripped jeans poolside. The water slips into my unseemly creases of my natural body, highlighting all my wet imperfections. I'm disgusting. I make you beautiful. The song comes to its clunky end and an ad plays, telling you to buy tickets to some film festival, which you will, and say they're a gift. I roll clumsily, splashing the water, sweeping the sky from view, submerging my face into the chlorinated primordial ale until I become nothing but liquid. Thank you. Please welcome the wonderful Lydia Pejovic.
Over my fear of falling up the stairs. Let's see how it goes when I go down the stairs. I'm going to be reading 3 poems from my recently defended poetry thesis called Shatterproof. The first poem is more of a love poem, which I don't usually write poems like this, so it's all going to go downhill from here. So this is my love poem. This is called Umbrella Tree. This evening, we went to see the magnolias, the blooming pink and white flowers exploding, bowl-shaped from branches. You advanced, I advanced, tied to your wrist with my finger and thumb. In the sunset, your frame glowed orange. A psychic told me once that having an orange aura signifies intensity, a willingness to act. In the shade of the grand tree, yours is the shadow that exposes the fire of the setting sun. Everything that gleams in the near dusk is you. You are my confection, so tender and fragrant that bees buzzed in a tempest around your skull, forming a graffiti of insects in the sticky spring air. You reached to snatch a flower, your arms stretching into the branches. Whatever bones can do, yours can do more. Outstretched, then into yourself, you placed the soft petals in my hands. No effort, no tears, just a magnolia in my fingers. Here is the garden of all gardens, made more beautiful by the murmuring wind, abundant blooms, and your patient bones. Thank you. This next poem is a title from a CNN article about the coldest city in the entire world. It's in Siberia. This poem is entitled, "It's Now -50 in the World's Coldest City." The women in fur hats remind us that it is not so bad, only that 4 years ago their eyelashes froze to their lids. Even then, cold water warms up frostbite, so be sure to run your eyes underneath it. On the most frigid of days, heat cannot adequately warm a near-frozen body. The sun kills. Just dress warmly, in layers, like a cabbage, she said. Vegetables never grow properly in winter. They are stunted, small, and frosted. Acclimation is all you can hope for if you wish body and crops to thaw. Somewhere on Earth, there is a cabbage that grows out of an icy pool, and it tastes like chemicals, preservatives, snow packs. You either adjust and dress accordingly, or you suffer, she said. The layered cabbage women go to the winter market, and I am happy not to be them. Even so, though I do not live in the world's coldest city, I fear I may never get warm, especially without another person's body. I must be thawed gently by the darkened light of a layerless man. Thank you. And for my final poem, this one is entitled Rose Shell. I dreamt of you falling from the sky, a raindrop of gargantuan proportion. I assumed your purpose was to water the plants in our backyard, and as you crashed into the rose bushes, I only lamented that the petals would be destroyed. You were not real to me. In my mind, you could not feel pain. When you rose, you were covered in thorns, sticking out of your arms, lodged into your cheeks, one planted into your tongue, which you pulled out with ease. The bushes were mangled, the shape of your body imprinting the leaves that stayed on the ground. In the moonlight, I believed you to be an angel. Rose petals crowned your head, pounded in by sparse thorns. When the blood dripped down your cheeks, it was as if you were blushing at something, though the yard was filled with silence. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Dr. Leahy.
I almost forgot how much I like this night. It's bittersweet because some of you are graduating and moving along, but I'm always floored by the variety of voices that we have in this program. The MFA, not ours, but the MFA in general, has been criticized for bringing writers together, having them share and critique each other's work, and then everybody goes out writing the same way. And I think that our students prove that that is not the case, and that the conversations we have in class actually help each of you figure out the voice that you want to develop and what's yours and nobody else's. And I really think we heard that tonight. I'm so proud of you, because this has been a dizzying semester for me, and you all stuck with it. Literally dizzying. I do want to thank David Krausman, who was here earlier but had to leave. He keeps the things running behind the scenes. I know all of you students know who he is, and I would like you to personally thank him at some point at the end of this semester. And the other person who has had my back all semester, pretty much 5 days a week, is Julia Ainley, and I'd like to give her a round of applause. Julia's our newest staff person. She started, I don't know, just over a year ago, and hit the ground running, and she's been amazing. Also, of course, my colleague Richard Bausch always has my back too, so I appreciate him. But we still have, I think, beverages and food outside. I want to thank you all for being here. You all make my job fun, and I can't wait to come back in the fall. And also to grade your portfolios now while I'm in a good mood.